Well, the collapse continues. What's going on? Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. What is the collapse I'm talking about? I'm talking about the collapse of the Chinese economy. And one financial expert thinks this is a downturn the Chinese regime will not recover from. But first, I want to draw your attention to this right here. This is yesterday's article on the Substack over at brittgillette.substack.com. It's titled AI, Drone Swarms, and the End Times. And guys, this is extremely important to understand if you don't know what this is all about and what is coming, because most people have no understanding what's about to come upon the world very quickly as a result of this. So this talks about drone swarms and specifically AI-controlled decentralized drone swarms. So when most people think of drones, they think of something like this, and that's understandable. That's what we see in most of the corporate mainstream media news. When they think of drone swarms, they think of just a whole bunch of these types of drones collected together. But what is coming, what is right around the corner, is much more sophisticated than this. It's something you would call biomimetic drones. Those are drones that mimic nature. We looked at one of these in last week in one of last week's videos on the Chinese bird drones. But these are drones that draw their inspiration from the biological world, from God's creation. And this has several examples in this article of those, such as mosquitoes. China is developing mosquito-sized drones for reconnaissance, for even assassinations to be carried out by these. So these are drones that look and act in almost every way like mosquitoes. We see the same thing with drones the size of ants that can do things just like ants do. So we can see some of these in action right here and how they move. They work collectively together in order to achieve a specific purpose. And so, again, we're seeing the development of these across the board. We see biometric bee drones under development. And again, they claim the reason, well, this is for agricultural purposes that we would want to do this, right? We may have to replace the bee population one day, they say, and so we need to develop these types of robotic insects, locust, birds, fish, all these different types of drones that mimic nature, act in terms of swarms, act in terms of schools of fish, and they can carry out these military-grade tasks. And ultimately, when you onboard AI onto these types of drone swarms, you're going to end up with a force, once you can build it at scale, that will be able, not only be able to conquer the world, but by necessity has to conquer the world. And we're getting very close to that point in time. This is something we've been talking about on this channel for 20 years, or at least I've been talking about for 20 years. This channel isn't that old, but the work, the writings that I've been putting out are that old. We've been pointing to this. We're seeing it happen right before our eyes, guys. So make sure to check out this article to find out all about that. Now, one thing I want to point out, it's been about 4 months since God made this a full-time endeavor for our family. So we stepped out in faith, and so many of you have been praying for us. You've supported us financially. We're so thankful for that. Guys, if you find value in articles like this one or in videos like the one we're watching right now, please consider becoming a paid subscriber over on the Substack. This is mostly how we support our family financially. We had a little bit of a drop-off last month we're doing fine, but guys, if you find value in this, if you want to support us, this is the best way to do it, is to become a paid subscriber over at the Substack. Now, in doing that, you get more than just the ability to financially support us. You'll get access to the archives on the Substack, the ability to comment. You'll get at a paid premium post that comes out every Saturday, either an article or a video that delves deeper into a topic of interest. And then, of course, you get things such as the monthly live Q&A via Zoom. That is tonight, as a reminder for those who are interested. So tonight at 7 p.m. we will have that. Afterward, we post the replay for people to be able to watch who aren't able to show up live. So if you have questions for that, leave those questions in the comments section on Substack, and we will make sure to address those questions later tonight. That'll be both Jenny and myself available on that. You can ask questions in real time on the Zoom as well. You don't have to post them ahead of time, but that's available if you can't make it live. And then the replay will be posted afterwards. Now, a reminder link will go out just a few minutes before that live session for those who haven't bookmarked it, but it is at the bottom of Saturday's article if you want to go check that out. So Saturday's article, let me see, let me go up here. Saturday's article was this one right here, Fewer Prepared for What's Coming. So that link is at the bottom of that article if you want to bookmark that ahead of time and meet us tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So guys, what is going on in China? Here's what we see right here. So this is from NTD. It says, China's economy spirals with no end in sight, says Kyle Bass. Bass says Washington wields a trump card that should serve as a deterrent against a Chinese attack on Taiwan. And again, we've been saying China is locked in what's called a deflationary spiral. So this is an interesting word for them to use, which is exactly what we saw during the Great Depression. So that's what's going on. China is in a Great Depression type moment. The rest of the world is following along. But let's read what this has to say. It says, Communist China is grappling with the most severe economic crisis in its history, a downturn that the regime will not recover from, according to Kyle Bass, founder and chief investment officer at Hyman Capital Management. Now, that's quite a strong statement. He's basically saying, I don't know that he's saying the Chinese Communist Party won't recover from this, or that there will be a revolution, or that Xi Jinping, his regime, will be knocked out of power, but the Chinese Communist Party will remain in power. Not sure exactly what he's saying, but he's underscoring the severity of this crisis. And for those that don't know, Kyle Bass is not just the average person you read about in these news stories that's quoted as, well, we found this random person to quote in an article. So Kyle Bass really became famous in the financial world back during the Great Financial Crisis. He predicted the subprime mortgage crisis along with many others, but he also put his investors in position to profit from that by investing in or by buying credit default swaps that paid off in a big way if those mortgages were defaulted on. So he had the foresight to see that event happening before it happened, or to see it in progress when others didn't. And now he's telling us, well, China is dealing with the most severe economic crisis in its history, which is quite a statement when you look at Chinese history. He goes on, he says, there is nothing that is going to bail China out of their economic spiral. Nothing. They're having a real estate crisis. And we mentioned before, that has already dwarfed the total property losses in the United States from the subprime mortgage crisis. They've already dwarfed that in China, over $18 trillion in property value lost in the last 4 years alone. So they're having a real estate crisis, a banking crisis, a youth unemployment crisis, and now they need to be worried about their current account, Bass said in an interview on Epic TV's American Thought Leaders that aired on June 26th. Bass said U.S. tariffs and declining trade threaten China's economic advantage, which is its trade surplus with the United States. China's exports to the United States plunged by 35% in May compared to a year earlier, according to Chinese customs data. China's once bright spot is now in question, Bass said. I actually am surprised it's not down more. China's also been hit hard by capital flight. In 2024, Bass said, China experienced a massive outflow of both foreign direct investment and portfolio investment totaling about $500 billion. China is also facing unsustainable debts. When combining China's sovereign debt and local government financing debt, Bass estimated that the country's debt to GDP ratio should be roughly 350%, which he said is difficult to manage considering the various economic challenges. To put that in perspective, the United States is about 120%. Japan, which I would consider the worst off of the major economies, is at 266%, around that area. So, and now that's not necessarily apples to apples comparison, because I don't know if you included local government debt for the United States and Japan, what would that be? I don't know. But again, this is Kyle Bass speaking, and he has a lot more insight probably than I do. So he says another indicator of China's financial crisis is the performance of China's bond market. As of June 27th, the yield on China's 10-year sovereign bond is approximately 1.64% compared to 4.26% for the U.S. Treasury. That's showing an economy that's in a deflationary state when you see what really are record low yields for Chinese debt. And we talked about that once before a few months back. He says, so the Chinese government is pretty good at lying about whatever they want to lie about. So, and I would point out such as saying the economy is growing when it's been shrinking for 4 years. But the bond market kind of tells the truth, and the bond markets are telling you China is in an economic winter, Bass said, and that is absolutely true. China is the second largest economy in the world, and they are trapped in a deflationary spiral. About this from Reuters, it says China's factory gate deflation, the worst in 22 months as economic headwinds mount. It says China's producer deflation deepened to its worst level in almost 2 years in May, while consumer prices extended declines as the economy grappled with trade tensions and a prolonged housing downturn. Uncertainties from a tariff war with the United States and weak consumption at home have rattled sentiment and fueled expectations of more policy stimulus to combat deflationary pressures. And notice they say stimulus. These are the exact same things we saw taking place in the United States and around the world during the Great Depression. And notice how they say more policy stimulus. Well, obviously, the previous stimulus did not work because they are trapped in deflation. So those things work until they don't, and then you get locked in this deflationary spiral that really does not end until you have the market reaches a state of equilibrium and begins to grow again. But in the meantime, that is terrible for the people who are living through it. It says the producer price index fell 3.3% in May from a year earlier, worse than a 2.7% decline in April, and the deepest contraction in 22 months. National Bureau of Statistics data showed that compared with an estimated 3.2% fall in a Reuters poll. Quote, China continues to face persistent deflationary pressure, said Zhuai Zhang, chief economist at Pinpoint Asset Management. The price war in the auto sector is another signal of fierce competition driving prices lower. I'm also concerned about the property prices, which resumed their downward trend in recent months after a period of stabilization, he said. With households cautious about spending due to income pressures, some companies have resorted to price discounts to boost sales, prompting authorities to urge an end to the auto industry's bruising price wars. Now again, lowering prices is good for consumers, is it not? But governments fight this because they want inflation, because that's a result of their monetary printing. And they know that given the system they've created, once you get locked into this deflationary spiral, there's really no way out of that vortex. And that's where revolutions come from, which may mean why Kyle Bass was referencing the regime may not recover from this, he said. So how about this? This is from CNBC. It says China's industrial profits plunged 9.1%, the steepest fall in 7 months. It says China's industrial profits plunged 9.1% in May from a year earlier, and the latest sign that Beijing's stimulus efforts are falling short in boosting enterprises' profitability. Again, stimulus and the deflation, in the face of deflation, is it ends up, it just makes the problem worse, frankly. So the free market is the way out of this. It says that marked the largest monthly decline since October last year, when the industrial profits dropped 10%. Industrial profits are a key measure of the financial health of factories, mines, and utilities in China. Cumulative profits at major industrial firms fell 1.1% in the first 5 months of the year compared to a year earlier. The Statistics Bureau attributed the sharp decline in May to insufficient domestic demand and lower prices for industrial products. In September last year, industrial profits recorded an eye-watering 27.1% year-over-year drop, leading Beijing to ramp up stimulus in its bid to reverse the slump in corporate earnings. Obviously, that didn't work. So guys, what are we seeing here? We are seeing what's going on is a synchronized global depression, and China is at the center of that because we've seen this going on for quite some time. They've been trapped in deflation. They're not alone. Germany is in a similar state, not as bad off as China is, but we read here, German inflation unexpectedly falls to 2% in June. So we're seeing more deflation rather than the inflation people have been calling for. We've seen 3 years of economic decline in Germany as we see the deindustrialization of Germany. Some of their biggest companies, some of their most storied companies leaving Germany to go abroad where they can get more reliable access to affordable energy. And so we're seeing Germany, the third largest economy in the world, also contracting. And of course, we've talked about Japan and the problems Japan has as the fourth largest economy. We see that continuing. Japan's economy is stalled. The stock market is ignoring that, says Barron's. I think that's about the last thing holding all of this up, as people look around and they go, well, the stock market hasn't crashed yet, because that could happen very quickly. People tend to use that as a barometer for the overall economy, but it's not really. And so once that goes, that last bit of confidence will just vanish and the global economy will be in free fall. We see this in the United States, the largest economy in the world. U.S. economy shrank 0.5% in the first quarter, worse than earlier estimates had revealed. So guys, no doubt about it, what's going on right now is, again, a global synchronized depression. We haven't seen anything like this since the Great Depression. We're really in the early innings of this. So it really hasn't, most people haven't woken up to this fact yet. I believe it's soon the mainstream corporate media is going to be talking about this and acting as if, oh, we could see this all along, the whole way. But guys, this is happening, and I know a lot of people, they say, well, Britt, you've been talking about this for so long. And I ran across this on X. It really stood out to me. It was Chris Martenson, and he had a guest, Michael Guyad. There's the two of them right there. And they were talking about this very thing because they've been pointing out a lot of these same factors. And they said, our job is not to predict the exact mile marker you might crash your car. Our job is to be the weatherman to say, we're identifying conditions that suggest it's dangerous. In other words, if we're pointing out hey, there's some terrible weather conditions out there. Be very careful driving your car. And you say, I haven't wrecked yet. I'm going to speed up to 70, 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. Oh, I still haven't wrecked. I'm going to go even faster. Well, eventually, the conditions are such that will happen. All we're pointing out is the conditions, what the data is telling us. And even though the media tells us something completely different, the data and eventually your own eyes will make you realize, wait, I think they've been lying to us about a lot of this data. We've been in a depression. This depression is getting worse. Soon it will be undeniable. And when the financial crisis aspect of this depression kicks in, you don't have to have both, but I believe we will. And we've talked about why, because Japan is trapped. We're going to enter this financial crisis phase. And guys, this is going to be the greatest financial and economic crisis the world has ever seen. And as a result of that, the central banks, the politicians, they're going to tell us, well, we have the solution. Don't worry. Here's the solution. We've been working on it over here, and it's ready to go. It's central bank digital currencies, tokenized assets, digital IDs. We can piece your life back together. You can get your retirement savings back. You can get the lost deposits in your bank account back. You can have all these things, but you have to do it within this new system. And many people, the overwhelming majority of the people, will be more than happy to do that. And when they do that, they will enter, the entire world will enter a digital trap from which there is no escape. And guys, that trap, that digital system, sets the stage. It lays the foundation for the mark of the beast system we read about in the book of Revelation. Because central bank digital currencies, tokenized assets, digital IDs, that whole digital financial system, especially when they start to say, well, cash is now illegal. We're eliminating cash. Well, that system is indistinguishable in capability and function from the mark of the beast itself. All that's required at that point is the beast, is the Antichrist, is the tribulation. And once that happens, once the Antichrist and the false prophet come onto the world scene, all they have to do is flip a switch to create this mark of the beast system, because all the infrastructure will be put in place already. We're seeing it being constructed right now, right under our noses, right in front of our faces, while much of the world seems to think, oh, the things are the same as they've always been. Nothing to see here. Totally unaware of what's going on. Very similar to back here in this article that we were talking about before with drones. Most people are unaware that anything like this exists, much less that we're going to see swarms of these types of things coming about in the months and years ahead, that we're going to see, this is a robot, guys. This isn't a real fish. This is a drone that looks like a fish. And what happens when there's entire schools of these, when they can scale this up and fill the world's oceans, fill the world's waterways with drones that are on the alert for enemy vessels. Guys, this is where the world is headed. Most people are completely unaware of all of these things. That's why it's more important than ever to be pointing these out to people, opening their eyes whenever we can, and most importantly, sharing the good news of Jesus Christ to as many people as possible. So guys, let me know what you think. Leave your comments below. Remember, later tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Jenny and I will be live, have the live Q&A through Zoom. You'll receive a reminder with that link just a few minutes beforehand, but make sure to join us then. Ask your questions if you miss it. We'll post the replay tomorrow, and you can view it whenever you want after that. So guys, let me know what you think. Thanks for joining, and God willing, I'll see you on Friday. Bye.